Well, good evening, YouTube modeling community. This is Martin from Martin's Model Shop. I've been tagged by Pappy, Fred Henry, at West Georgia Models and Customs. So I guess this is my three interests that I started off with. Um, I actually started off just like the tag from Jeff on RC cars. And I belong to a group that I helped form in New Orleans, Louisiana, called RACE, which stood for Radio Activated Car Enthusiasts. And when I first started, I was a terrible driver. I destroyed a car almost every outing. But eventually I got pretty proficient at it, and I started off with the group, and we did a lot of traveling. We traveled with other groups and raced, in Lafayette and Baton Rouge and Slidell and different places in Louisiana. We even flew to Texas one time for a national event as a group. We all got on a Southwest plane and brought our stuff, and I guess I would have went to jail if they knew what I had in the Foot Locker when I packed it and sent it, because I had a gallon of nitromethane that I brought with me, because I didn't know if I was going to be able to get fuel that I used over there when we went to Texas. So I guess I took my chances doing that, but you couldn't do that nowadays. They'd hang you by your toenails and put you in jail. But I was hooked pretty good. I started off using Associated product cars, Team Associated cars. And like I say, I destroyed a lot of cars when I started because I was pretty rough. Was not very hand-to-eye coordinated. But I just kept at it and got proficient. And then I moved on to a bigger and a better car. It was made from Delta Manufacturing, and I actually got to be their dealer, and I used to sell their parts, their cars, and things like that. And the commission that I made helped kind of fund my racing. Unfortunately, the group disbanded due to the lack of interest with some of the guys, and we kept getting smaller and smaller show outs at races. And if you don't get more than 10 cars, it's really not fun to race. We used to go racing, we'd have 30, 40, 50 cars, and we'd have 2 or 3 heats and different things like that. And we were very competitive. We ran 3 different series during the year. We ran a stock car series for a number of races, and then we ran open wheel cars, and then Can-Am cars. And you used to buy the bodies and paint them as per that genre of car. And due to, like I say, the lack of interest and the cost of the equipment and the cars, the group just kind of disbanded and faded away. And we sold everything because we had our own track that we carried around with us, and I had trailers, and we had tables for the drivers to stand on. We had a lot of equipment, and so we just disbanded and sold everything and divided the money up amongst the rest of the members that were still around. I guess my second interest, you might say, is also, as Pappy stated, he likes woodworking. I like woodworking. My dad was very proficient at it, and he taught me a lot of tips and tricks on how to do it, and I became pretty proficient at it. And every house that I had, I built a garage from ground up. The first house that I did, I even poured the concrete, which I'll never do that again. That is tons of work. But I built a 24 by 24 garage and poured the slab and 80 feet of driveway. It was a lot of work. But every house that I owned, I built a garage on the back because I was always into cars and things like that, and I needed it for my equipment and tools and to build the cars in. And everyone got a little bit better. And I guess I did 1, 2, 3, 4 garages. And Now, the one I'm in now, after I retired, I moved to Texas and I actually built my house. I drew the plans a year before I retired, and my brother and I live on my brother's property, and we built this house. It took us about 11 months to build it, him and I, just by ourselves. I mean, I had a little help from other people, friends, doing certain things, but the bulk of the work was done by me and him. And right now, he's 84 and I'm 71. So I think two old guys building a house from the ground up in 11 months is not too shabby. And I guess my third and real passion for hobbies after the RC cars, I've always been hooked on one-to-one cars, probably since I'm 8 years old, because my brother was a early drag racer. He had dragsters and Willis's and Henry J's and a number of race cars. And I guess I was going to the drag races with him since I was like 8 years old. And I enjoy building old cars. I went to a NSRA show in Knoxville, Tennessee, with the invitation of my neighbor that lived across the street from me. And he said, man, why don't you come? Because he had a T-bucket, and I enjoyed watching, going over to his house and working with him and stuff like that. So I flew to Knoxville, and he picked me up at the airport, and we spent 3 days in Knoxville, and I guarantee you, I walked around that place for 3 days, and I didn't see half the cars that was there. There was over 9,000 cars there. But I got bit by the bug there, and I said, man, I wanted one. I joined the NSRA that day and started looking around, and at that time, I had a 68 Camaro with a small block in it. And I actually traded the body for a 37 Chevrolet two-door sedan. And I took the motor and transmission out of it because it was a brand new built 350 with a turbo 350 transmission. And I took that motor and transmission out, swapped the body for this 37, which my wife said I was nuts because it was a basket case when I got it. But I turned that into a showpiece. And I kept it probably 5 or 6 years maybe, and I sold it to a fella in Port Richey, Florida. He flew in, picked it up, and drove it home. And I went looking around for another car, and I found a 34 Hudson Terraplane, 4-door, all 4-door suicide. Unfortunately, I chopped the top and got that all finished, and was getting ready to start on it, and the original owner found out that I had it and begged me to sell it back to him. He had lost the car through a divorce, and so I sold him his car back. And then I started looking around again, and I found a 48 Anglia that was here in Texas, and it was an old race car. They had moved the motor back 10 inches, cut the cowl, had a blower on it. It was sticking through the windshield and stuff like that. So I bought the rolling chassis, and I brought it home. Cut the front off because it had a straight axle on it. I cut the front off by the firewall, and I cut the back off, and I did a back half, narrowed the rear end, and built all my own chassis. I had the rear end narrowed by Paul, and he used to build dragsters, and Paul Daggerpoint in New Orleans. And I sent the axles off to Moser, and I had them resplined, cut and resplined. And I bought a Pinto, and I put a whole Pinto front end underneath the car, built all of the front, and got a 427 Chevrolet engine, and built it, built my headers, put it all back in the car. And I kept that probably 9 years, something like that. And then I sold it because I was planning on retiring, and sold it to a fella in Oklahoma. And don't know whether he still has it or not, or whatever. But anyway, I retired, and prior to retiring, I bought a 77 MGB, and I restored it. And I drove it around for a number of years with the four-cylinder in it. Wasn't very fast. My neighbors all had cars. One had a Corvette, one had a 32 Ford, and another one had a 63 Nova, and they'd just leave me in the dust, because I had all of my 54 horsepower. And so when I retired, I moved here, and I had trouble with the car. The electrical system had a Lucas wiring system, and Lucas is famous for being garbage. But anyway, so I changed it, and I bought a 94 Firebird that had a V6 in it, a 3.4 liter V6 and a 5-speed. And I took that motor and transmission out of the car, and I put it in an MG. And it's pretty cool now. It's like putting a big block in a Chevelle. It's pretty quick. I still have that car. But anyway, so I'm liked the cars all along. And when I retired, naturally, you lose your income. You just get to Social Security, and that's barely enough to get by on. So my hobby then became scale modeling and scale building, and met a lot of nice people, found this YouTube community, and met a lot of people on here, and it's been a wonderful experience. I've been doing it for about 2.5 years now, back into modeling. I did a lot of modeling when I was a kid. But anyway, so I think I'm going to continue the plastic modeling probably until I can't do it anymore. But I guess that's my 3 interests. Hope that you all enjoyed the story. I enjoyed telling it. So I guess it's time for me to tag my 3 people. And I guess the first person I want to tag is my fellow Texan, Cliff Smith at Kissy Boys Customs. He does some phenomenal work. If you're not subscribed to his channel, you really need to go look at what he does. He does some great work, great work. And then I guess number 2, who was actually somebody that just found my channel, and I've watched him do his work, and he's a very talented builder also. Jeff Trees at Treeline Model Works. So if you're not subscribed to him, you really need to look into him. He does some really good work also. And my third one is another follower that I have that is a pretty avid follower of me, because he makes a lot of comments on all my bills, and I appreciate his comments. And his name is Gary Parker, and he has no channel name. He just goes by Gary Parker. But so there you go. There's the 3 people that I've tagged. You consider yourself officially tagged, and you need to make your videos now. Cliff Smith, Jeff Trees, and Gary Parker. And I guess really there's only one more thing I'd like to say. I'd like to thank all of the modeling community for accepting me as part of this community and following my group, my bills. I appreciate all of the comments that everybody makes against my bills, and I learn from everybody. I watch their videos, and that's how I'm self-taught, but it's actually through YouTube, just watching some of these talented builders. There's just way too many people to even name, to start to name. But I just want to thank the community for accepting me as part of the group. And I guess that's about it for right now. So this is Martin from Martin's Model Shop, signing out. See you later.